we've all heard that 50% of marriages end in divorce, but why don't we talk more about it? That's the question. Today, we're joined by a divorce coach to shed some light on the taboo subject of divorce. Please welcome Wendy Sterling.
Yeah, Wendy!
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Wendy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm glad to get to this, because as a divorced person myself, I really want to hear about your experience. Now, how did you know that it was time to get a divorce, and were you hesitant to tell the people around you? Because I know that was tough for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I married my college sweetheart, and he happened to be a lawyer, which was a box that my family dreamed of me checking. And so while we were working on things in couples therapy, we did have some issues. I learned unexpectedly that he was actually having an affair. And that opened a very large can of worms for me, because what it exposed was that I had been living and engaging in a marriage that was rooted in codependency. So I was living in his vision of the world and the life that he wanted, instead of really focusing on what it was that I wanted. Wow. And so, yes, I was the one who initiated my divorce, and I was completely terrified to tell my family. In fact, it took me 2 weeks to tell my parents, who I'm super close with. And I was so embarrassed, because I am the first one in my family to get divorced. But what it ended up teaching me is that the people that you love support you no matter what. And even more important than that is that it's crucial that you have support going through this time, because it's not something that you take or a course in.
That was well
Thank you for your honesty. That was a great answer.
So many of our viewers can probably relate.
That was super honest. I appreciate
they needed
that.
to hear that.
Yeah,
That was
I agree.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Thank
good.
you.
That was cool that you guys all talked off camera too, with me just staring into the camera. That was great too. We're gonna have some rules on how to do television after this segment.
Sounds good.
Wendy, back to you. So, speaking of support, I imagine it was hard telling your family and friends, but how do you tell your kids? Are there do's and don'ts when talking to your children about this?
Yes, Jeff, there are. My boys were 10 and 7 when their dad and I got separated. And what I believe is that what you tell them is very age dependent. Now, at the same time, there are rules that apply no matter what age your kids are. And number one is that your kids know that they had nothing to do with the decision that you and your spouse are making. And as a result, that you also love them no matter what. It is so important that your children know that they will continue to be a priority to both you and your spouse, because at the end of the day, the divorce is between you and them. It's not about your kids divorcing either one of your parents. So making sure that you are also not bad-mouthing the other parent in front of your children is so incredibly important. I'm sure you guys can relate to some of that as well. And, it's just crucial that your kids know that you guys are aligned, because what can easily happen is if one person gets blamed, the kids then will start pointing fingers. And, in my own story, my kids did actually hear me kick their dad out. And so I was blamed for quite some time. And I never spoke up about it, because it wasn't the right time. Emotions were highly charged. Right. And what was most important to me was keeping my kids in the center, instead of making them feel like they were in this tug of war, being in the middle of what was happening.
Who's a good example of that, before you jump in? Al.
Yeah,
Al,
absolutely.
You have successfully...
I'm listening to Wendy talk, and honestly, the issue with me was, when my ex-wife and I separated, it wasn't contentious, Wendy. It was like we were pretty cool. She could have really come at me. She was really mature about it, much like you are. And because of that, this weird thing happened where our kids didn't understand, especially my son. He was just like, he never saw an argument. He never heard yelling. So it just seemed like, out of nowhere we separated. So it's going to be rough either way, but I just want to say I appreciate your honesty. Like, that's really difficult to do on TV. Yeah, so I really appreciate you.
I just want to get this in. You have like 30 seconds. I want to get this question in. Divorce is really expensive, and I think it keeps a lot of people in bad marriages. So what do you wish you knew before filing, monetarily, I guess?
Absolutely. So I really wish that I knew to stack away some cash. I was not aware that when you utter those words, I want a divorce, that everything gets split from that point forward. So if your viewers can please take a piece of advice from someone who has been through this, if you're at the grocery stores, take out an extra $100. If you normally take out a couple hundred at the ATM, take another, $100 or $200 on top of that, so that you do have some cash stacked away. Everything gets divided, and it's so important that you think about this as a long-term marathon instead of it just being a sprint. I hear all the time, I just want to be done, but you've got to be strategic. You've got to protect yourself, and more importantly, protect your children.
Wow. Man.
So much wonderful advice.
That is an expert.
I know.
Yeah. That's an expert.
And you're just easy to talk to. Wendy, thank you so much. We appreciate you. To our viewers, Wendy has great resources for you. Visit her website, wendysterling.net, where she offers coaching services. Also check out her podcast, The Divorced Woman's Guide, and keep an eye out for Wendy's book, Divorce Sucks, Now What? Out February 12th. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you, guys.
That's awesome.
Thanks.